I don't think that many people understand quite how profound that kind of deep personalization, big data, massive machine learning complex is going to have for us. You know, how different our experience of consuming content online is going to be.
Hi, this is Eric Jones with Velocitize. I'm here with David Lockie, the founder of Pragmatic, one of the fastest growing digital agencies in the UK, specializing in WordPress. David, it's great to have you here.
Eric, it's a pleasure to be here.
As the founder of an agency, how do you counsel clients on something like purpose, or help them to be more authentic, to be authentic to their corporate values? Do you think it's safe to do nothing in this day and age on issues that may or may not impact their business? How do you counsel clients, particularly from a digital perspective, on addressing these issues in increasingly a polarized society?
It's only kind of recently, this last 6-12 months, where we've been having those kind of high-level conversations. Traditionally, it's been more like, we did our brand book 5 years ago, and we were just having a redesign and build the website. Now, so kind of the brand strategy was dictating everything that we were doing as a digital agency, because kind of the brand consultancy was separated out quite often. Now we're seeing that it's actually a little bit balanced, in that our clients are having to revisit their values based on what they learn about their customers through interacting in a digital way. So that's one of the amazing things about digital media, is that kind of feedback loop, whereas traditionally it was kind of broadcast and try and listen to the echoes. Digital is far more a conversation. And so as the kind of impact of digital starts becoming ever higher within a business, it's now always C-suite for successful businesses, and arguably marketing strategy is kind of coalescing with overall business and brand strategy. We're starting to see those conversations happening, like what are the values that our customers think about us, what do they care about, and how do those align with what we use internally? How can we align those two to be far more powerful with our communications? And I think that trend's going to massively accelerate, and needs to. We're really seeing this kind of vacuum of responsibility. Whereas maybe 50 years ago we'd have counted on government or NGOs to perform these kind of roles in society. It just doesn't seem to be there anymore so much. So it's far more down to corporations and employers to have strong opinions, to be clear about their purposes, and to use that to build a community around them. And that kind of the idea that the brand is the center point of a community, with kind of different concentric circles of engagement, is what I see as the kind of the future of the brand. Is here are the values, here's what we want to achieve in the world, here's the dent that we want to leave, here's our plan for doing it, come and help us do it. And it's going to have to be a far more multi-factor engagement, rather than just a consumer. We've got a thing, do you want to buy that thing? It's far more a conversation around, yes, we can solve a need, but here's what else we're doing. Do you stand by our mission and our values? But also, how do we give a financial stake in our success to our community? So how do we manage circular economies of value, so that what consumers do and what brands do are kind of synergistic, and they build a strong economy around them? And that's definitely what I am excited about seeing happen over the next couple of years.
So digital agencies have played squarely in the marketing bucket, to date, as more and more businesses go through digital transformations. Suddenly the remit has really been widened for agencies. How are you thinking about that opportunity for Pragmatic? preparing for that, equipping your talent for that, and most importantly, advising clients as they, begin to evolve their businesses.
Yeah, and not to forget preparing our own team as well. So I think this is maybe the kind of existential challenge of today's digital agency is how do we stop thinking about ourselves as kind of a marketing function and start thinking about ourselves as kind of core business strategy advisors. It's definitely been a kind of heady experience for me personally to go from conversations with marketing managers, marketing directors up to C-suite and having very strategic kind of broad and deep conversations about how is the landscape going to change and how's that going to affect them as a business. And something that I'm really aware of is coming to events like this and going to events that are outside the marketing space, the digital space, and thinking about how we take the principles of delivering organisational change, which is what most digital projects are to some degree or other, whether explicitly or not. How do we take those capabilities of strategy, consultancy, user and customer experience, product service design, build and implementation, delivery, comms? How do we take that capability and apply it to something that's not just a marketing problem? It's it's a global challenge, and I feel really galvanized by that. I've often felt that being a digital agency feels a bit undervalued. We charge the same as a tradesperson who deserve to be paid well, but the impact that we can have can be far more strategic. We can offer the right bit of advice here or deliver an incrementally better solution that means the survival and thriving of a business or not. I'm not suggesting that every project we do is, that kind of, we have that power, but if we do a project badly, which we don't do for the record, whenever we can help it, but in the times where projects have gone wrong, we've seen how much that's hurt clients, and it's those are some of the lowest points of my career where we've let a client down, and it's definitely the thing that keeps me up at night. Are we doing the best job for our clients, and by proxy that means are we doing the best job of making sure that our team are the best that they can be in order to do that delivery.
With with this change, how do you think that's impacted client expectations of what their digital agency delivers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with a lot of these questions, the answer is it's changing now. I really feel like the 2017 and 2018 are going to be pivotal years for businesses like mine. So previously it's been this kind of marketing function that's been the tail that's wagged by the dog, which is the rest of the business. And with the power of things like big data, machine learning, blockchain, we're essentially talking about a new economy, a truly digital economy. And what I think we've been dealing with up till now really is the old economy, the one that's been kind of developing since we moved into towns and invented coins as money. That economy just got grafted onto a new medium, which is the digital medium. And I feel like that's changing now. Digital's got to a point where we don't necessarily need the institutions to do the same roles that they've always done, that we can create brands that have got a specific purpose that's very aligned with a human purpose. So we want to promote sustainable energy. We want to stop ocean plastics. We want to ensure that there's a universal basic income, or at least prevent inequality wherever we can and stop that growing. So we can choose a purpose like that. The hard bit is then creating a plan that says this is how we're going to go about that. This is the white paper, the business plan, whatever we call that thing. It's, this is our plan for executing it. And then really we have to recruit a community to help us do that. We have to build an economy around that purpose, around that plan. And we started to see some of this, with Kickstarter, for example, crowdfunding. But it's really in that kind of cryptocurrency and blockchain space that I see that happening in a truly native and powerful way. In that, everyone talks about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they're massively powerful, but there's also far too many projects to even keep up with that have picked a mission, picked a purpose, and they've created an economic model for how to do that, and they've gone out and engaged the community to support them. The Telegram, the social media, the messaging app that is sort of popular with crypto users, they raised $850 million in their ICO. This is the new way that organisations fund, is to engage that community and to make sure that the brand engagement is about purpose, but it's also about having a financial stake in there as well as an economic need. There's a product or a service that somebody can offer. That basic transaction has to exist, but now it can be far more granular, far more decentralized, far more aligned with human values, and far more natively digital. And so that's the new economy that I'm trying to understand as quickly and as well as I can, and talk to our clients around. How does this affect you? If you had to take all of your brand's history away, or your customer base, or your market share, everything else, and go to the market anew, to a marketplace of stakeholders. I'm not going to say consumers. I feel like we're post-consumer. It's more like, we're citizens. We want to have a say in not only how we live our lives and affect affect those around us, support our families, influence the community, make sure that everyone's safe. But how does your brand stand up when you go out to that community of citizens and say, this is our purpose, we want to provide energy, or we want to provide healthcare, here are the values that are around that, and here's our plan for doing it. Does that core brand strategy stand up in that situation? Do you think that you could go out to the marketplace now, all other things being even, and recruit 1 million people to be your stakeholders? And some will, and some will need some work to get there, I think. But it's not going to happen overnight. But now they won't let me code anymore. My job is to think about what's coming over the next 2, 3, 5 years, and make sure that we're prepared as an organisation, and we're helping our clients prepare for that new world, which I increasingly feel certain is in that direction.
So one of the first places where this communication, this dialogue with stakeholders, occurs on the web today. Yep. The early days of the web, it was simply, the digital versions of paper documents, yep. Right? Very, very simple. Yep. And now we've built these rich, immersive digital experiences. Mm-hmm. I wondered, again, with that backdrop of, the dialogue that now needs to occur between brand and stakeholder, if you could talk about the digital experiences of today that you're building for clients, and, how you think those digital experiences will evolve for tomorrow.
So I'm going to use the metaphor of a specific change in WordPress to talk about how I think that, the broader context is evolving. So the new content editor in WordPress, which is a really active project, arguably the most important project that the WordPress team have ever done, is to change out the somewhat clunky editor that's been in there for years. Tiny MCE. It's, you can look at it with plain text and HTML tags, or you can look at it as kind of, well, this looks bold and this looks italic. But when you hold it up against Medium or Squarespace or any of the other kind of like inline front-end editing experiences that are out there, just doesn't stand up. It's, you know, it's been amazing, but we have to update that to be ready for that kind of new sophistication of editing experience. And you might think it's a pretty straightforward job. You know, you just do some front-end editing, you make it all look much sexier, and the job is done. What's really impressed me about the Gutenberg team's approach to this is that they've looked far deeper, far more philosophically at the problem, the challenge, and said, well, okay, we can make the experience for the content editor much better, but, you know, where are we going with this? You know, and where we're going is that it's not just going to be, here's an article, do you want to read it or not? It's going to be about what's in that article, what are the blocks of content that underlie that. Is this a text block? Is it a video block? Is it an image? Is it a pull quote? Is it related posts? Is it a slider? And what does that mean? How do they relate to each other? How do they relate to the experience that a user might have on different devices? So I want to access the content that's on this web page through my Apple Watch, through my smartphone, through my desktop. I want to ask Alexa about it. In the future, I want my AI, like kind of news bot, to be able to go out and pull the things out that are the most interesting. You know, I only want, you know, the analysis paragraphs from these things, and I want them in a news list. So they've built that kind of fundamental engineering in there that says, sure, we've got an API, sure, you can access the post, but within that, there'll be an API within the post. So you'll be able to say, give me the first pull quote from each of the articles in this category over the last 2 or 3 years. And whilst that's exciting for us as WordPress developers, because we can build far more sophisticated editing experiences and front-end experiences for our customers, what that ultimately means is that we can layer on the next generation of web tech as well. So we can layer on machine learning in a more powerful way, because it'll have a much better framework to understand what the editor's intent is with this block of content, and it will be able to separate those out and manipulate them, both for kind of static presentation into all these different devices, but also on the fly. So where we see this other kind of industry trend of personalization, about making sure that we give every single unique visitor the best possible experience that we can with our brand at that moment in time, in that context. Having the underlying content neatly separated out like that means that kind of hyper-personalization can happen. You know, if we know that they're on a mobile and the connection's poor, probably we don't serve them these big images. You know, so even something quite basic like that, I don't think that many people understand quite how profound that kind of deep personalization, big data, massive machine learning complex is going to have for us. You know, how different our experience of consuming content online is going to be. And that's why I picked this example of the Gutenberg editor, because although it feels like what we're doing is kind of, you know, definitely it's a quantum leap in the experience, but really what it's doing is preparing WordPress for a brave new world where, you know, we're putting content into the web, and then there'll be a much kind of thicker layer of machines assisting us between the editor and the consumer. Right now it's kind of like publish it and every consumer sees the same thing, and I think we'll see that separation, both of concerns technically with all these different endpoints, but also experientially, in that brands will communicate what they want to communicate as well as they can, and then consumers will digest that in their own way. They'll decide what isn't important. In fact, their AIs, their bots will also help them do that.
David, I think it's been said in the future it's not going to be one website for a billion people, but a billion websites for one person, kind of reflecting this, increased personalization or this hyper personalization that you referenced. Are there any brands that spring to mind that you think are doing this extremely well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be the big four. Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and that's kind of because to do that hyper personalization, you have to have the data to underpin it. But more than that, you also have to have the machine intelligence to be able to execute on that data and make the personalization happen. And I believe they're kind of ahead of where society's arguments and discussion points are. So in the UK, we've got this slew of data regulation coming in. We've got GDPR, we've got the Data Act, we've got all this kind of big important stuff that is valid and needs to be done, but it's also old. Those are old challenges now. The challenges of today is that these companies are building artificial intelligence, and for an AI, the data is how you train it. After that, it becomes disposable and a commodity as far as the AI is concerned. Sure, if it's asked to retrieve it, it can, but once that data is passed through that AI, it's trained that AI, then that company has that asset. You can never take that back. You can't ask a machine to unlearn something. I guess maybe you can do a restore point to the night before or something, but practically speaking, it's shutting the door after the horse is bolted. I mean, we're all putting all of our content online already. We can't escape from it. Even if you don't have a Facebook account, Facebook has one for you. So that hyper personalization has to come with that intelligence and that sheer amount of data. So I mean, they're not a clothing brand or a shoe brand or a drinks brand, but we really have to look at what those four companies, and indeed some of the Tencent and Alibaba are doing to see what that future looks like.
Well, David, it was wonderful having you here today. Really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.